Hey folks, Alcris here with a comprehensive guide to all the wonders available in Old World. The Wonders and Dynasties DLC, there are a possible 24 wonders that can be picked from in the game. However, the game only ever has 13 wonders available in each game. So the wonders that are available are going to be random every game. You can check which wonders are available by hovering over the wonders menu in the top, and then you can see which wonders are available at every tier. Another way is if you found a city and you select a worker, you can go over to the wonders tab of the worker and you can see which wonders are not available, as well as see which wonders are available. This can be handy to check quickly, like, is a wonder I care about enabled or not? Let's start with the pyramids. The pyramids is one of the strongest wonders in the game, and the reason for this is very simple. It reduces the cost to start a law by 50%. So normally it costs 400 civics to start a law. So if I only have 800 civics, I start a law with 400 civics, I only have 400 civics left. That's a lot of civics to spend on a law. But if we now have a pyramids, then we can see that starting a law only costs 200 civics. This is incredibly good. Like, really, really, really good. Suddenly, I can enact 2 laws for 400 civics, and I have 400 civics in the bank still. It's really, really good. Pyramids does take 100 civics to build, because it is a weak tier wonder. So you do need that 100 civics and 600 stone. But that civics pays for itself very quickly, your first law, and you've already made that civics back. It's a really, really good wonder. If it's available in the game, you should probably try to get it. Of course, even if it's available in the game, though, realize that the pyramids does take a arid or desert tile or sand tile to build. So for this city, I need to expand my borders over here in order to do so. Fortunately, this is a landowner's city, so I can just buy the tiles and expand, but that's something to keep in mind. You're going to want to find a site for your pyramids early. Fortunately, since it can be built at week, you can build it in any city. So just, you may want to prioritize settling somewhere that has an arid or sand tile if you're gunning for pyramids and your capital doesn't have an arid or sand tile. Next up, we've got the Ziggurat. The Ziggurat is a quiet but strong wonder. The reason for it is it reduced all improvement costs by 20%. Costs the same as much as the pyramids. It can be built anywhere, except for it requires a holy city. But if you found your pagan religion, congrats, you have a holy city, and all that takes is building a shrine. So that really shouldn't be an obstacle, and it can be built anywhere. There's no terrain requirement for the Ziggurat. It also gives you a global 20 civics year, which means it pays back for itself on the civics cost in 5 years. But the real reason you want to get this wonder is this minus 20% improvements cost. That adds up over the game. Every improvement is 20% cheaper. That's effectively as if your economy, at least for the purposes of building improvements, were 20% stronger. So it's a really great wonder. It's very valuable if you can get it early. If pyramids isn't available, Ziggurat is usually a good go-to for your early 600 stone if you're looking for an early wonder. And it's very powerful. If you look at the frugal trait, if you have a frugal leader, you get the same effect that the Ziggurat has, minus 20% improvement costs, which is pretty significant. So another way of thinking about the Ziggurat is it's as if you have frugal on your leader the entire game after you build it, which is pretty solid. So in this game here, I have set up a frugal builder, which means it gets 50% improvement cost reduction, and also as a governor, and also 20% as a leader in all cities. And since I built the Ziggurat, I also get minus 20% in all cities, which means everything is on sale, and my improvements only take 10% of the cost. So let's take a look here. We got a nice little tile, and I have a hamlet here, and it costs 3 stone. Why does it cost 3 stone? If I look up a hamlet, I see a hamlet normally costs 20 stone, so if everything's 90% off, shouldn't it cost 2 stone? Well, every urban improvement takes a urban tile. So as a builder, I can actually add an urban tile manually, and then now I see my hamlet costs what I would expect, 20, or 10% of 20, which is 2. So what's going on here basically is it's adding in that cost of the urban tile, that 10 stone. You're paying out on every urban improvement you're making that isn't urban, by the way. It's kind of a hidden cost that's there. That's good to keep in mind. And it is adding that in, but it's discounting it because that gets discounted by frugal governor, frugal leader, and by the ziggurat. It gets better. So here, we're playing Egypt. Egypt has a really cool trait that because you're Egypt, you'll see you have minus 20% cost for adjacent improvement classes, which is amazing because now in this game, we have a frugal leader who's governor, we have the ziggurat, and we're Egypt, which means adjacent building costs are minus 20%, which means we can build an amphitheater for 1 stone, which is kind of amazingly strong. And again, this adds up all game. It's definitely something that comes up. Egypt has that bonus, but the ziggurat, those savings of the ziggurat, the reason I'm making this sidetrack into like frugal and Egypt is because the ziggurat improvement costs are really, really amazing, and all the sources of improvement cost reduction stack. One last thing about the ziggurat. Ziggurat has a guaranteed event chain that happens when you build it, and you will have the choice of dedicating your ziggurat to love, wisdom, or war. And you can see the benefits here. It applies to the city in which the ziggurat was built, and it will give you either 10% growth and 1 happiness, or 10% culture and 10% science, which can be very powerful in your capital, or 10% training and 10% orders, which can be very powerful in your military capital or your main military production city. All these are very solid. Generally, I will probably lean towards wisdom because culture and science, especially in the capital, especially if that's where I'm building my ziggurat. Capital usually is the holy city for my pagan religion, which means I can build the ziggurat there. And culture and science are really strong to have. So this is kind of another bonus that the ziggurat has that you won't notice until you build it, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Next up, we've got the Yazilikaya. This is another weak tier wonder. I would put this as a B tier. If the pyramids is S tier on the tier list and the ziggurat is A tier, then the Yazilikaya is B tier. It's solid. It's good if you can get it. The reason I say this is it costs the same as the pyramids and the ziggurat. It requires a holy city or an adjacent mountain, but it gives you 20% extra civics in a state religion city, in every state religion city, which is good, but that's a civics multiplier, which means you need solid base civics to help you get to getting any benefit from that. A city by itself produces 8 civics base without anything, if it's not a civics family, which means congrats. Building this wonder in a city gives you 1.6 extra civics in a city that otherwise has no civics improvements. That's not really a lot to write home on, and it's not specializing in every. It's applying to all the cities. So like that's nice. Like it's as if you effectively built a courthouse in every city, which is nice. Definitely something to be useful. Very good. But like not game-changingly amazing. It's something that kind of takes a little bit of time to really add up the benefit. That said, civics are incredible, but generally, like it's going to be hard to justify 600 stone, especially early for a weak wonder, to get that benefit. It's something that really shines later. You can think of it effectively as Yazilikaya is as if I build a courthouse in every city, which again is very good, and it's cheaper than building a courthouse in every city, assuming you have how many cities? Courthouse is 80 stone, right? So 600 divided by 80 would be 7.5. So as long as you have 8 cities, it's better to build the Yazilikaya, ignoring the civics cost, but it doesn't have upkeep, so something like that. That said, generally you're not trying to go wide with your civics production. You're trying to go. You maybe have 1, maybe 2 civics cities that are really pumping out the majority of your civics. So that to me limits the utility of the Yazilikaya. The Jerwan Aqueduct. And apologies for any pronunciation I get wrong here. This is a wonder that requires an ancient adjacent mountain or volcano. It's another weak wonder. I will also put it in the B tier, but it can be very strong situationally. All it does is it gives you some growth, some culture, which every wonder gives you culture, but it gives you a free farmer in adjacent farms. And of course, every wonder gives you victory points like that. That's another reason to build wonders, that they get you towards the victory point win condition. But a free farmer in adjacent farms. The nice thing about this wonder is you don't need to have built the farm before you build the wonder. It will, if you build a farm later, after you build the wonder, you'll instantly get the farmer for free. And this farmer does not take a citizen. It just magically appears, and you have an extra specialist without needing to grow the citizen for the farmer. So when and why would you build, and where would you build the Jerwan Aqueduct? Here's an example from a game I played where I was Egypt, and I built the Jerwan Aqueduct. And as you can see, I had basically a near perfect setup. The perfect setup would be having 5 adjacent farms. Here I misplaced it slightly because I wanted to preserve the river for lumber mills, and I wanted to preserve the hills for mines and quarries. But like, if you get 4 or 5 farms next to it, it's really good. There's also sages, which means if you zoom into the city, you'll see I'm getting an extra. I have 18 specialists in the city, which means I'm getting that extra bonus from sages. That gives me an extra science per specialist. So each of these farmers, effectively, as you can see here, is giving me 2 science because I'm sages. So sages is a particularly nice combo with the Jerwan Aqueduct, but all these farmers do still give you 1 growth. So another way of thinking about it is the Jerwan Aqueduct, effectively, if you can build 4 or 5 adjacent farms, since the farmers are effectively free, congrats, you get extra 4 or 5 base growth in the city, and it also has 2 of its own base growth. So yeah, it can be situationally very good. It's a little bit of luxury. It does require the right setup. Usually it's going to be best next to a volcano, where you're going to want to have at least 4 or 5 adjacent farms that you can build. Because that way, like, the volcano is going to have really lush terrain generally. There's the bonus from being a volcano. Volcanoes give plus 40% to adjacent farms. So yeah, that's the Jerwan Aqueduct. The Oracle. The Oracle is a relatively cheap wonder because it only requires 400 stone and then fills the rest with food, which generally is plentiful early game. It's an interesting wonder. So it will give you 10 gold per turn per religion that you have in that city, which, at least if you have world religion, your pagan religion, that's 20 gold a turn, which, okay, sure. But the main thing it really gives you is these 2 effects here. The tech card hand size, that means instead of drawing from 4 techs, you draw from 5 techs, which can help you find the tech that you want, manage what bonus cards you can have. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because if you're trying to avoid getting double or triple bonus cards in your hand, having a larger hand size does not necessarily help, because you can burn more bonus cards, because you can't make use of more than 1 in your hand at a time. And it also gives you a free agent network in all holy cities. This makes it really interesting in multiplayer or in any situation where you are behind in founding religions, or like there's lots of religions founded. However, you still do need to have a spy master in order to actually place an agent into those agent networks, which makes it less useful. I would put the Oracle in B tier because of that. That said, generally every nation is going to be founding its pagan religion, which means that's going to be at least 1 holy city per nation. And generally that's probably going to be in their capital. So this gives you a free agent network in everyone's capital. It does require Spy Master to unlock, but that's pretty powerful, especially in a free-for-all game. That can be very, very valuable. Lastly, note the Oracle requires a hill, so if you don't have a hill, you can't build the Oracle. But hills are usually not too hard to find. And yeah, that's the Oracle. The Hanging Gardens. The Hanging Gardens are somewhat pricey because they require 200 wood, which is usually kind of hard to get early game. That's 10 chops. It's a lot of orders built into getting wood for the Hanging Gardens. They do require being on a river. And then their main thing is they give you 20% growth in all cities. And similar to the Yazilikaya, you generally don't want to go wide with your growth. You want to go tall. And again, this is not base growth. This isn't multiplicative growth. So another way of thinking about the Hanging Gardens is if we look at Babylonia, we see that Babylonia has a 20% growth bonus. So the Hanging Gardens basically gives you that 20% growth bonus. And of course, if you're Babylonia, you can build the Hanging Gardens as well. And now, congrats, you have a 40% growth bonus, which can be particularly strong. But again, the Hanging Gardens is a global growth bonus in all cities. It's not specialized, and generally you're probably going to have one or two cities that where you're really pumping growth so that you can get a lot of citizens, so that you can turn them into specialists. You're not really looking at growth everywhere. That said, you are using growth everywhere, particularly for workers. You're probably building a worker or two in every city. The Hanging Gardens help speed that up in every city. So for example, your first worker costs you 60 growth. And a city at the start gives you 8 growth per. So that's about 8 turns to build a worker. If you have the Hanging Gardens, that will save you a turn or so to build a worker. That also means Babylon builds a worker faster. Obviously, this gets even better if you have base growth in that city for landowners or from hunters that have camps or from traders that have nets with fish or crabs. So the Hanging Gardens can be good, but again, 400 stone, and also that 200 wood. Like wood early game is just really, really hard to come by, especially that much wood. It just makes it, I almost feel like you almost build the Hanging Gardens much later. It's not something that you're going to be rushing for early, especially since by the time you have 200 wood, you probably have developing and you want to look at the next set of wonders on the board with your 400 stone. So I will put the Hanging Gardens firmly in B tier. The Jebel Barkal. If you watch the recent content creator FFA, you may have heard No Legs Kitten chant about this wonder, the wonders of this wonder, how incredibly amazing this wonder is, and he's not wrong. I agree with him and say this wonder is very much in S tier. And this is why. It is a developing wonder. It does require a hill. It's the standard 900 stone cost for most developing wonders. And what it does, and why it's amazing, is when you finish it, every city gets a temple. If it has a world religion present, if there's multiple world religions present, it will pick one of them randomly, so it might not be your state religion. But generally, depending when you build this, you can usually make it your state religion. That's kind of amazing. That's a free temple. That's not gated by doctrine, which is usually the thing you need in order to get a temple. You don't need doctrine. Doctrine is pretty deep in the tech tree. So yeah, this can be very, very strong. Temples give you half an order each. So even without theologies, that is, you have 5, 6, 7 cities. Let's say 8 cities. That's 4 orders for completing this wonder, which is pretty great. And of course, theologies can make this stronger. Clerics get double from temples and monasteries. The Revelation theology in particular is worth noting because it gives you an extra half order per temple. If that's available for your state religion and that's something that you want to go for, that can be very, very strong. That's something you do want wide. Orders everywhere is very good. So yeah, the Jebel Barkal is a very strong wonder and definitely worth exploring to build. One note, you can use the improvement map marker to choose where the temple will go. It's definitely worth doing this, especially if you have monasteries, because that way you can put the temples next to the monastery so that they can improve the monastery using the adjacency. So there's a little bit of micro there. And lastly, you'll probably want to use disciples to spread religion everywhere before finishing the Jebel Rock, so that you can make sure you get a temple in every city that you have. A disciple is generally a lot cheaper than the cost of building a temple, 60 stone, and having the disciple work for several turns as well. So well worth doing. A very, very strong wonder. Having temples everywhere instantly, they construct instantly when the wonder constructs is very strong. I put this firmly in S tier. The Apadana. The Apadana is a solid wonder. I would put it in A tier. Note, it is our first wonder that we're talking about that requires being adjacent to the city center. And since there's only at most 6 tiles around your city center, that means you better leave a slot for this. Otherwise, you're going to be bulldozing something, which is never pleasant. So if you are planning to go for this wonder, I recommend putting down a map marker to remind yourself that, oh, I need to hold a city slot, adjacent tile next to my city center for this wonder. What makes this wonder great? It's 900 stone, standard cost. It gives you 20 civics per turn. Sure, that's great. So it pays itself back civics cost-wise after 10 turns. The big thing is it reduces maintenance in all cities by 50%. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up, and every city's maintenance goes up. So let's jump into a game where I have an Apadana built. But first, a short note on what is maintenance. What is this red coin? It's one of the more confusing concepts of Old World. You can think of it like upkeep cost. It reduces the amount of money a city makes. It's increased by population. It costs 4 gold per unit of population. Again, population is the sum of cities, specialists, and citizens. So for example, here in Waset, I have 0 citizens left, and I have 15 specialists, which means my population is 15. And if I go into my cost here, I can see that I'm indeed paying 4 gold per population in maintenance, or not 4. Effectively, maintenance is negative gold, but 4 maintenance per population, so 60. And then every improvement costs you 2 maintenance, no matter what the improvement is. So that's also costing there. So my maintenance for this city is 146. Discontent also raises maintenance. You reduce it through connected. Citadel reduces it. Palace reduces it, which is somewhat late game. Pleased family reduces it. Obviously, friendly family also reduces it. The legalism theology also reduces maintenance. Notice all those add up to just as much as the Apadana, and the Apadana is another 50% on top. So if I didn't have discontent here, this city would be sitting very pretty. So you'll notice I went down from 146 or more with that discontent to just 36. And this happens in every city because the Apadana works in every city. So if we go over to this city, we see that we're paying 60 gold in maintenance. You notice there's also a cost for the distance from the capital. And that 60 gold is reduced from 100 because, again, the Apadana is balancing a lot of this out. So essentially this is 100 minus 40%. We can do the math here. This is, yeah. So if we look at another city, let's pick another city here, and this is from a duel. You will see here in this city, the maintenance is only 55. We don't have a very high discontent level. We're reducing it for connected. This is why connecting your cities is good. It reduces maintenance and also gives you growth, which is the main reason to do the connection, and also happiness. Pleased and legalism. And again, that Apadana is really big. This is a lot of money that it saves us over the term. We've gone from 55 to 16 in maintenance. This happens in every city. That's what makes the Apadana so strong. It can really help in terms of your maintenance costs. And maintenance is different than upkeep, by the way. Upkeep is what it costs to maintain laws. Maintenance is the thing in the cities that the red coin is visible in this menu. So maintenance, a little confusing as a topic, but you can kind of think of it like maintenance for cities, whereas upkeep is for laws. And again, maintenance comes from distance from the capital, improvements, and population. And the Apadana has a minus 50% to maintenance, which is really, really good. And of course, this is old world, so it stacks additively with other sources of maintenance reduction. So Apadana, very strong. I'll put it in A tier. The Necropolis. This wonder lets you train necromancers, which when you fight your enemy, you can raise them from the dead troops. No. This is the Necropolis. It is pretty good. It gives you base civics in every city. per pagan religion. So if somehow you have multiple pagan religions in a city, you can get many civics. Of course, pagan religions are per nation, so the only way to do that is to conquer someone else's city. But yeah, costs 900 stone, requires a hill, developing culture. It also gives you 2 culture per specialist, which can be a lot. If you remember, Waset had 15 specialists, so that would be 30 culture from the Necropolis. So this is a very powerful wonder because it lets you go tall in culture in the city it's built in, and also wide with base civics everywhere you have a pagan religion. So assuming you go polytheism and you build a shrine in every one of your cities, you now have 3 civics in every city, which is incredible. The Hati's bonus, for example, is 2 civics a turn in every city. So the Necropolis is like the Hati but better, which is incredibly strong. And base civics are incredibly strong because there aren't very many sources of base civics in the game. And if you couple the Necropolis with the Yazilikaya, suddenly your base is stronger, which means multiplicative civic effects are even better. This is a very strong wonder. Kind of requires you to go polytheism so that you can go pagan, although right now the way the game is, you generally want to go polytheism first and then swap to monotheism later, because that way you can get shrines everywhere, assuming you have good shrines, and also get the pagan religion everywhere for divine rule. So Necropolis definitely worth considering. Really strong to build in your capital or anywhere that you're trying to pump culture because of that 2 turn per specialist. Generally, you're going to be doing a lot of specialists in your capital. So Necropolis, I would put in A tier. Another very, very strong wonder. Ishtar Gate. Ishtar Gate, aka OMG, how did you win? Oh, double victory. Oh, yeah. Ishtar Gate basically is kind of an interesting wonder in that costs 300 iron, which hopefully by the mid-game here where you're developing, you should have enough iron. So that's probably easier to get than the stone at that point. Hills are easier to find than great quarry sites. When it finishes, it gives you 100 culture in every city, which means if you found a lot of cities that start out weak, all those cities then can be developing. And as you know, you get a extra victory point for being developing. So if you're 10 points away from victory or 10 points away from double victory, and you have 9 weak cities, Ishtar can suddenly give you 9 points out of thin air, which is why it sometimes is the double victory winning condition. You go very wide, you build Ishtar, especially with the builder, rush it out, and boom. You can also delay finishing it until you settle all your cities and then finish it. You can delay any wonder, just move a worker off. It will tick down eventually, so you'll want to make sure you sort of keep an eye on the turns remaining. But you can move off a wonder at any time. You can't move off improvements, but you can move off of wonders. So yeah, that's Ishtar. Very good. Also, developing lets you rush units out. So a city on your borders or on your frontier that's weak really can't build anything itself. It's weak. You've probably not invested a lot in its infrastructure. But if it's developing and you're sitting on a lot of civics, congrats, that city can rush out a great unit. Not your unique unit, of course, because that requires either a stronghold or a citadel. But now it can rush out a strong 8 strength unit, or even if it has horses, it can rush out a cataphract in a turn with civics or any other hurrying or rushing that you have available, because again, it requires developing to be able to rush. That's really strong. So generally you will want to look towards building Ishtar even if you're not going for a double victory. And the last aspect of Ishtar is it gives you 2 growth per turn per culture level. This is kind of a quiet effect, but it can be very valuable in your capital or anywhere else that you're trying to pump specialists, which usually is your capital. And there's kind of a nice feedback loop here between culture level, growth, happiness. So let's take a look here where I have a city with Ishtar built. So this is an extreme example here. This is a legendary 3 city at culture level. And I built the Ishtar, and you'll notice it's giving me 12 base growth, which is very strong. But remember, that's 2 growth per culture level, so that's not that much early on. But 6 base growth, that's solid. Not really a reason to build it. The reason really you build Ishtar is for double victory, woo, or to get developing in all your cities. That those are the two reasons. The growth is kind of a nice little bonus. So, I mean, in that sense, you should think about where you put your Ishtar. Will I be able to benefit from growth in this city, assuming it's not winning you the game with double victory, or by letting you rush out of all the cities that you have. So Ishtar I would put in B tier. It's solid, but definitely not something that you're going to prioritize first, unless for some reason, unless you're going for double victory. All right, so here's a really nice trader city that we could potentially build a lighthouse in. We have 4 net improvements and 1 more that we could build. And as you can see, it's already doubled because we have 100% from traders. Remember, building a lighthouse will be another plus 100%, so it'll be 6 and 60 a turn, which is pretty great. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's build the lighthouse. Actually, before we do, note I'm hovering over this hamlet here, and you'll see develops into the village 14 years. All right, I've gone ahead and built the lighthouse here. And just to know, I'm doing this in the map editor to speed things up. Normally, it would take some time to build it, but I'm just doing it in the map editor. You'll notice the village still shows 14 years, so the lighthouse reduces the build time, and you'll notice all these nets are now even better with the lighthouse. So it's something that's particularly strong for traders, because that's an insane amount of growth in the city just from those nets. We have 18 growth from those nets, which is more than Ishtar in a legendary 3 city. So yeah, that's the power of traders plus lighthouse. If we go ahead and build another hamlet, I just placed another hamlet here, and you'll notice it says 10 years remaining, whereas the original hamlet had 14. So the way lighthouse works is basically will reduce the time to tick up, but it doesn't work retroactively, so it won't like speed up this. So it only works for hamlets that you build going forward, or for hamlets that upgrade into villages going forward. So it's a nice bonus, but nothing to write home about, but just want to explain that. Lighthouse is very, 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 very situational based on your map. If there's lots of seafood resources, water resources, then it's very good. If not, then the hamlet thing is generally not a reason to build it. If there's no resources there, you're going to get a lot of benefit from, and it pairs really well with traders. Lastly, there is kind of a niche use case for it. It will push borders for you. So if you want to connect some sea tiles, then you can do that. Although now that I think you can swap to colonies and buy water coastal tiles with colonies, that's less of an issue. Used to not be able to, so it used to be very good for pushing borders because there was no other way to do so. But now you can just buy coastal water tiles with colonies. So not really a reason to build a lighthouse. Lastly, I would put lighthouse firmly in that situational tier. It's really going to be dependent on the map. Could be S tier, could be completely worthless depending on the water resources available to you. The Royal Library is an interesting wonder. It gives you 20 civics a turn. It's another wonder that requires an adjacent city center. So that now makes we had Apadana, Ishtar, and now Royal Library. So that's 3 out of our 6 adjacent city center slots. All it does is it costs 300 wood and 600 stone, so a wood cost wonder. The 20 civics a turn, and then connected foreign cities give science. This is disabled in duels because you're generally fighting one opponent and you're probably not going to be connected with them. Connected requires having peace with a nation and requires you to have some way to get there, either road, river, or ocean connection. So let's take a look at what this wonder looks like. So I loaded up the Content Creators FFA here, and I'm looking at Fluffy Bunny. We've got a Royal Library looking very pretty right there. It doesn't show up in the city science. It only shows up in the nation science as this plus 162 connected foreign cities. And as you can see here, larger and more distant cities produce more. And you can see it's quite a lot of science adding up in a game like this, but it does require connection and peace. So if you're playing a single player game and you're playing peaceful, Royal Library can be very, very good. But if you're a warmonger and you're not going to have peace with anyone, it's going to be very, very situational. Yeah. It's worth noting, connected foreign cities also give you gold. So the amount of science you'll get from them is actually 1/4 the amount of gold that you're getting. So for example, Rome is giving Fluffy 5 science, and 20 gold. The science is coming from the Royal Library, but you always get the gold if the foreign city is connected and you are at peace, and there is a way to get there. The Musaeum is our first strong wonder. It requires an adjacent city center, so remember to where you're placing that so you don't have to bulldoze. It is our 4th wonder that has the adjacent city centers. So we had Apadana, Ishtar, and Royal Library, and now this. So that's 4 slots around your capital, or around a city. Obviously, it doesn't have to be in your capital. It does require strong. It requires 400 wood, which hopefully at this point, when you have strong, isn't too much, but like that can be pretty tough constraint. The big things it does is 50% science. That's enormous. If we look at what a university does, a university, which requires legendary, by the way, gives you 50% science, and this, of course, stacks with a university. It also gives you, in all cities, an extra civic turn per elder specialist. This can be very strong, but the real reason to do this is to get that big science boost. So here's a game where I built the museum, looking very, very pretty there. You can see it is giving me 37 science. We can look at the breakdown here. It's essentially plus 50% to my subtotal of 75, which is pretty great. And then since I have a bunch of elder specialists, if I look at my civics income, I have 10 of them. I'm also getting 10 civics, base civics from the museum. So it's a pretty significant boost to your science. It's like having another university, and it only requires strong. It is in the S tier as a wonder, something very much worth gunning for, because it can potentially significantly boost science, which you generally are generating from at least generally one city. So for example, here, my capital is more than half of my nation's science. The Colossus. This one is another water wonder. It requires coastal water. It is interesting cost-wise because it is 800 iron and only 400 stone, so it's a significant iron investment. The main reason to build this is it gives you base civics in all of your cities that are connected, and hopefully by the time you're building this, all of your cities are connected. It also gives you 1 level for new units produced in that city, so ideally you would be building this in a military production hub that is on the coast. Generally, though, that level for new units is gravy on top. The real reason to build this is to get base civics everywhere. That's essentially the hottie bonus everywhere. If you can combine, as long as you're connected, which is really, really strong, combine that with Necropolis, and then as Yazilikaya, and suddenly you've got really good base civics everywhere that are getting scaled up by the Yazilikaya. Of course, that does require 3 wonders. And of course, you can do this as hottie as well for even more base civics. But yeah, Colossus, very, very strong. I would put it as A tier. Could be tricky sometimes to find a strong coastal water city, especially if you're founding on the coast late. But if your capital's on the coast, then very, very straightforward. Or ideally, your military production hub is on the coast, and that way you can get the benefit from the 1 level for new units. Note that's XP, not a level. So that sorry, that's not XP, that is a level, not XP. That means it stacks with other bonuses for example, Shrine of Mithra gives you an extra level for ranged units. So if you have Shrine of Mithra and a ranged unit, and you're building Colossus, suddenly your ranged unit is starting at level 2. Plus, if you have a strict governor in that city, you'll get 100 XP, and then that XP that's basically your first level, and then you get from the XP, and then you get levels on top, so you can suddenly have 3 promotions out of a city, for example, which is kind of nice. That's a significantly stronger unit. Of course, that does require a lot of setup in the Colossus, but a little bit of a niche use case for stacking those sort of level bonuses that are independent of XP. So Colossus, very situational, but very strong if you can build it. Generally, there's going to be some water somewhere. The base civics is really strong and well worth it. 800 iron is a lot if you're not particularly focusing on iron on your economy, or you're using it for swordsmen or something. But yeah, definitely a wonder to keep an eye out for. The Acropolis. The Acropolis is 1200 stone, a pure stone strong wonder, requires a hill, and gives you 2 civics, base civics, in the city it's built in per religion. So if you're doing some sort of tolerance play, then that potentially could be good. If you have like 3 or 4 world religions and your pagan religion, that's 10 base civics, but that's a lot for a wonder. It also gives you half a turn per forum. Note that doesn't scale with the forum level, so just forum 1 everywhere is enough. But that does require building forum 1 everywhere, which is a lot of production, generally in cities that don't have great base civics. If you have 10 cities, that's 5 orders, but it requires you to build a forum everywhere, which is like 20 stone and 40 civics, so you've foregone 400 civics and 200 stone in your 10 cities to get 5 orders. That seems expensive to me. Acropolis I would put as firmly B tier, just because it doesn't feel that amazingly strong. It's nice, great bonus. I'll take the victory points if I can build it. Not something I'm going to be prioritizing. Mausoleum. This one is plus 50% culture in all your cities, which, if you're going for a point victory, can be very, very strong. Also, pure stone, 1200. And in the city that it's in, gives you guard promotion on your units, which, sure, if that for some reason is a military production city, that can be nice, but nothing really to write home about. The real reason to get this is if you're going for a point victory or you really want to boost culture everywhere. Of course, that is additive culture, not base culture, so you do need still some base culture. 50% plus 50% of 0 is still 0, so you need some way to be generating culture in all those cities, but can be very, very strong. But it's pretty situational. Generally, you're not relying only on culture, but it can be very helpful, especially since it's strong. I think the main use case for Mausoleum is you're racing your opponent to legendary, and you want to get there faster. You build this, you really don't care about the other cities, you're just caring that your capital is now 50% faster. That's effectively as if you suddenly were patrons and had 2 luxury resources in your borders, because you get 25% per each one for the patrons. So in that sense, I would put, or 2 precious resources rather. That's very solid. It can speed it up, but it's pretty expensive at 1200 stone. But if it secures a really, really good legendary wonder, and you somehow have the stone for that, plus the legendary wonder that now you're getting faster, could be valuable. That feels really situational to me, so I'll put it in B tier, but something definitely to consider as a weapon in your arsenal. The Cothon, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It will build you a free trireme every 10 turns, including the turn you build it. It costs 600 wood, so a trireme costs 100 wood by itself, so that's 6 triremes worth of wood. Obviously, water wonder. It works as a XP generating and spawn point, like a barracks for ships, I guess. And it gives you 4 ship units produced in that city an extra level, which nice if you find yourself in some sort of sea war. The main benefit of this is if you haven't teched cartography and you need a trireme for some reason, you can get it. Or you're planning lots of naval combat and want to have that extra level of ships. I would put this firmly in the highly map dependent category. Can be nice, but probably not something you're targeting for, unless maybe if you're on a very water heavy map and you're planning for lots of ship combat, could be good. And having a free trireme every turns, including on construction, is pretty good. But yeah, very, very, very situational. Khazneh. This is a very situational wonder as well. It is disabled in duel, so I can't say I've had much experience with it. It will give you silk, porcelain, exotic furs, ebony, and perfume, so 5 luxuries when you construct it. And it will automatically create a caravan every 5 turns, which is kind of nice, but does require somewhere friendly to send that caravan to. Requires 1200 stone and an adjacent mountain. Pretty situational, I would say. If you have an ambition or a national ambition to send 20 luxuries, having 5 more luxuries instantly seems pretty nice. The caravan is kind of cool, gravy on top, if you're playing peaceful with someone and you want to just send them caravans to get money. 1200 stone, Requires strong, requires an adjacent mountain. Very, very situational, not something I'm going to be targeting, but in the use case that you need yourself finding luxuries for a national ambition, that can be helpful there. Or if you're playing a peaceful game and want to benefit from the caravan. So yeah, very, very situational. The Heliopolis. Our first legendary wonder. This is probably the strongest wonder in the game. It gives you an extra order for every shrine that you have. That's incredibly strong. If you've been polytheism and you have 10 cities and they have 4 shrines each, that's 40 extra orders for 1,800 stone. It does require legendary. It does require arid or sand, so keep that in mind. You may need to do some weird border snaking tile trading to find arid or sand in your legendary city, but it's worth it. It is worth noting the Heliopolis is really, really, really good for Kush, because Kush get 50% extra output for shrines, and that scales on the Heliopolis, which is insanely strong. Heliopolis is very much an S tier. If this one is available, you want to be targeting this as your legendary wonder. It is the strongest wonder in the game. So here's an example from a game where I had Heliopolis, and I'm hovering over this city, and you'll notice I'm Kush, and I have 4 shrines in this city, so 1.5 from the Heliopolis for each shrine, plus 2.2 because this shrine gives me an order itself. Yeah, that is incredibly strong as a wonder. And that, like, you as Kush especially, you're going to be wanting building all your shrines everywhere, polytheism. So that is very, very strong. The Pantheon. Another legendary wonder that requires a holy city. Its main effect is that you get 2 base civics per culture level in all your state religion cities. This is really strong, because generally you're going to have, that's like at a strong city, that's 6 civics a turn base. In your legendary capital, that's 8 civics a turn base. Yeah, it's very strong. Would definitely put it as A tier. That's a significant civics output bonus across your empire. And again, if you had Colossus and Necropolis with paganism and Yazilikaya, all the civics stacking wonders, and your Hati, then that can really civics is probably the most valuable resource in the game. So anything that improves civics, especially base civics, is really strong, and this is a very strong source. Very strong. Lots of civics. I think the challenge with all the legendary wonders is they are very expensive. They come very late, and unless you have a builder, it's going to take a long time to build them. So ideally, you have a late game builder so you can rush these things out to really benefit from them, because otherwise it's a lot of investment for that's not going to, you're not going to see it until it finishes constructing, and it can take a long time to build. So yeah, Pantheon I would put in A tier. The Circus Maximus. So the main reason to build this wonder, which again is a adjacent city center wonder, so it requires being adjacent to your city center. So if you're planning to build this, remember to save a slot around it so you don't have to bulldoze something you don't want to bulldoze. I am totally speaking from experience. The main reason to build it is it gives you Swift on your new mounted units, so only your new mounted units, so ones that are built after finishing this wonder. Yeah, it's relatively cheap because 600 food and 1,200 stone, so not as bad. It's not a pure stone wonder. Very strong if you're building cataphracts. So pretty cool. It's also 40 global training, but that's global training, so nothing to write home about. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want your cataphracts to go further faster, or your unique units, if you have a mounted unique unit like Egypt, Persia, or Hati, then yeah, definitely something worth considering. I put it in A tier. The Colosseum. This is another relatively cheap wonder, 600 food, 1,200 stone. Requires a river and your legendary city. So if your legendary city doesn't have a river and you want to build a Colossus, find a way to tile trade or expand your borders to get a river if you want to build this, if you can. The main reason to build it is, especially if you can build it early, like with a builder after rushing to legendary, so you can get a swordsman before anyone else can build a swardsman, and swordsmen are pretty good units. They're really good against other infantry units. Yeah, so that, and then it'll keep giving you one every 10 turns. So you can get it well before anyone can get it tech-wise if you prioritize culture. The other reason to build it is it gives you 1 training per population. So ideally you would build this in a military production city, but you know, if you have a high growth capital that was a science city, suddenly now if you have 15 citizens plus specialists, the Colossus is giving you 15 training, base training a turn. That's pretty good. Put down a barracks, some barracks and rages, and suddenly you can produce military units out of your city really well. So it's a nice way to turn a science city into a military production city. Colossus is definitely in A tier. Very, very strong. The Hagia Sophia requires a holy city, legendary, 1800 stone, 2 happiness per turn per culture level in the city it was built in. The main reason, though, to build it is it gives all your cities plus 2 happiness levels. This reduces discontent by 2 in all cities. Discontent is minus 20 opinion per family. Per point of discontent per city. So that effectively, let's say you have 3 cities from a family, each family. So 3 cities, and now you're reducing discontent by 2 happiness levels. So that's 2 happiness levels is plus 40 opinion. And you have 3 cities that you're doing that in per family. So now you're plus 120 opinion with each family if you have 3 cities of every family. And of course, it's even better if you have more cities. So this is your late game, solve your family opinion problems once and for all. It's very strong. Of course, if you don't have family opinion problems, then no reason to really build this, except for the victory points. So it's situational in that sense, but it is very strong. I would put it as an A tier wonder. The Via Recta Souk. This is another tradey kind of wonder, similar to the Khazneh that we talked about earlier at Strong. 1200 stone, 600 wood, our last adjacent city center wonder. So if you want to build this, it will add luxuries, at least all the luxuries that exist on the map. So it could be up to all of these. Very useful if you're going for the national ambition to send 20 luxuries. That's it pretty much, and also 2 growth per culture level. So if you want to stack growth in your capital, that can be helpful, similar to Ishtar's effect there. But the real reason to build this is just get luxuries. If you haven't been able to reach your luxury because it's on the wrong side of the map, this will give it to you. Very, very situational. Generally not really worth building because, yeah, you can probably manage opinion other ways than giving luxuries around. And unless you have that national ambition to send luxuries, that's it. And that is our final wonder. And that is an overview of all the wonders in Old World. And if you ever need to reference that, you can check out the Wonders tab in the Old World reference spreadsheet, where you'll see the tier list, notes for each wonder, organized in the exact same order that we went through in this video, organized by level, weak, developing, strong, and legendary. Nice little quick reference, as well as the my tier list ranking for them, as well as any notes. So yeah, that is an overview of the existing wonders in Old World. You should now have a great understanding of what wonders are great, which ones to build, where to build them, remembering to keep track of your adjacent city center so you don't have to bulldoze something. And yeah, if you have any questions or disagree with any of the assessment, comments are welcome. Have a great one. Enjoy your time in Old World.